Greetings and welcome to what I think is the third official episode of Morrowind Modding Podcasts, where we talk about different topics concerning the Morrowind modding community with a variety of modders, both newer and older, from around the community. Today we're going to be talking about the Future of Morrowind as part of a special 15th anniversary set of podcast discussions, and this is a rather broad and exciting topic. There's a lot going on in the Morrowind modding community, from Openmw to the newly released TS3 MP Morrowind multiplayer mod, and of course more recent developments in graphics mods, province mods, and a lot more. We'll be discussing some of this, as well as the general future of the community after 15 long years here in a bit. But first, let's have a round of introductions, if you'll just all introduce yourselves.
Hey, I'm Caeris. I'm one of the authors for the Rise of the Tribe Unmourned mod, and I'm relatively new to the modding community.
Hello, I'm Dagoth Agahnim. I've been around the modding community for well over a decade now, and I worked on mods like Sobatur and Balistra Rising.
Hi, I'm MauiEyes. I'm the creator of the Merchant Fendis mod, the 11th most endorsed quest mod on Nexus, and The Lamp, and I now do game development for my own indie studio, so if you like Morrowind, stay tuned for, what I create in the future. It should be in the same spirit.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you all for being here, and I thought we'd begin the podcast here by starting with a simple question. What are each of you most enthusiastic or optimistic about going into the future with the Morrowind modding community?
For me, I think the biggest thing I am most keen for the future has to be Open Morrowind and, where that's going, because I feel like it's really paving a nice way for the future of modding, and I think when it fully releases, it's going to get a lot of publicity and such, and there's going to be a lot of people returning to Morrowind, and the world's going to be limitless, sort of thing. So Open Morrowind is my answer for that one.
For me, I think we're seeing a lot of the result of this community's deep love for Morrowind, because we've seen it ported forward into Oblivion, into Skyrim through Skywind. Then we've got Open Morrowind, which I'm really looking forward to. And then we've got, like, Elder Scrolls Online. The Morrowind expansion's been a runaway success, and a lot of my friends that have never played the old Elder Scrolls games, I've been getting them to play the original Morrowind because they've been loving that so much. And I feel like Morrowind's just still got a lot to give to people who have never tried it before.
I'm most excited about Morrowind multiplayer, which it's the future, but it's also the now. I tried it 3 weeks ago for the first time, and it's pretty much complete. There's servers, just use Openmw, and there's servers you can join. And there's like 15 people in Morrowind walking around, and it's insane.
Oh yeah, there's been a lot of pretty major developments in the Morrowind modding community recently. There's a lot going on, like the multiplayer thing there. And it's kind of crazy to think about, because TS3 MP, which is not in a fully released state, mind you, has something like 30 or 40 permanent servers now that players can join and then just play around Morrowind with all their friends and various companions. And, with all this stuff going on, I wanted to ask each of you, do you think you'll still be making mods for Morrowind like 2, 3, or 5 years from now?
Well, that's the plan, definitely. Don't ever want to stop modding for Morrowind. It's such a great community, such great people who really share that interest in this game. It's incredible, so yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I've had to take breaks from modding at times. Like, I missed this year's May Modathon, unfortunately, because I was working 100-hour work weeks to save up to buy a house. But, I mean, I always come back to Morrowind modding. No matter what I'm doing, no matter what I'm playing, I enjoy making content. I love to tell stories. And it's something I really enjoy to do. So, yeah, I'll definitely be doing this for a long time to come.
So I've moved on from Morrowind modding. I now am doing the development for my game company and do that in Unreal Engine. However, I have 3 mods left in me, and then I'll retire from modding altogether. I know what they are, I know what they're about, and they're exponentially better than the other mods that I produced. So at some point, those will hopefully come out, and they'll be really great.
Now, sort of on a related topic here, what do each of you think is the biggest draw of Morrowind modding right now? I mean, what makes you want to, go build your own mods?
That's a tough question. It's just a really well made like the construction sets is so well made in my opinion that that alone is a good draw to it. There's just so much you could do with it. And I feel anybody who comes across Morrowind will be like, hey, this isn't too hard to make a mod. I might make something. And then you get the whole feedback of everybody who's always so nice, so good, and then you just want to keep doing it. So there's a lot of there's a lot that draws you to modding, I think.
To me, modding has always been a deeply personal thing. I've always modded for myself. That's how I started out for the first several years. I started modding within the release year of the game, but I never really put out anything publicly for years because it was always little quality of life things for myself. And I've just always kind of followed the philosophy along the way of if you make something that you will enjoy, that you would want to play, then others will enjoy it too. And so far, that seems to have worked out.
For me, Morrowind is the ultimate storytelling machine. For some reason, it has to do probably with the text instead of voice dialogue and stuff, so you can have more details on everything, but you can tell great stories in Morrowind. So that's what attracts me to modding for Morrowind, and I think is most attractive about making a mod. It's a great narrative, just narrative machine.
Now, keeping in mind that Morrowind is a very old game at this point, I mean, it's turning 16 next year, it is probably still, to this date, probably the most active modding community from any game in the early 2000s, and I'm rather curious, what do each of you think is the most important thing the community should be focusing on in order to ensure that our modding community continues to grow and thrive in the coming years?
Well, I think just to keep doing what you like, really. As Dagoth said, keep making yourself happy with your mods and everything.
I mean, that's really what it comes down to. As long as people have stories that they want to tell, they're gonna find a way to tell them. And I think Morrowind and its ease of use for the construction set is a perfect way for them to do so.
Okay, question of how to keep the community going and all that. Well, I would say that first off, Morrowind modding showcases is like the blood of the community because mod authors getting recognized for making quality mods makes them want to make more quality mods, and then people see the reviews and they go, I gotta download that. That's part of why this community is vibrant. It's actually literally, I would say, because of Dark Elf Guy, what you've done in the forums and creating this huge following. Like you said, 6,000 people are following mods for Morrowind just on YouTube and then a bunch of other places. So that is what's important. And then I would say it's not something we can control as a community, but what would really be great, and I really wish Bethesda, and Bethesda being my favorite company, I don't think they treat their old games well. You look at like Rockstar, and they're still selling Grand Theft Auto 5 years later, like it's a new game, and it's kind of ridiculous. But they brought Grand Theft Auto Vice City to mobile. Morrowind should be brought to mobile. Oblivion should be on Xbox One next gen. There's no reason it shouldn't be ported over, and I don't know why they don't do that, but they should.
Oh yes, on the topic of more platforms for Morrowind, the only real development on the Morrowind mobile platform really is Openmw, which of course Bethesda then tried to shut down because they didn't really want people being able to play Morrowind on a tablet or a phone or things like that, and they kind of shut down that part of the project for Openmw, even though technically they can't since it is again an open sourced engine.
And it's something they really could monetize. Like, again, Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Great game, huge game when it came out. You can get it on iPad. You can get it on your iPhone. And that game came out around the same time as Morrowind. And, people buy it. It's $10. I bought it because it's a great game. And great games should always still be sold. And as a company like Bethesda, they need to recognize that when you make a great game, that pays dividends because it lasts 10, 15, 20 years with its shelf life. Most games don't do that because most games are just coming out like Call of Duty for the year to make the big sell, and then they forever go into anonymity in the $2 section or whatever of GameStop. But that's it. I didn't know that that they shut down the mobile part for Openmw. But yeah, Morrowind should be an app. So easy.
Definitely, because I mean, I've bought Morrowind 6 times for myself. Three sets of CDs because one CD or the other would crack. I got it on Xbox, the original Xbox, because they never updated it for any others like the 360, which always annoyed me. Then I bought it on Steam, and then I bought it on GOG. So I mean, I've bought Morrowind 6 times from them because it's such a great game.
And you know what, Dagoth? I think I have you beat. I think I've bought it probably 10 times for real. Both with the anthology, I bought it several times for Xbox. I bought it several times for computer. Sometimes just out of panic that like, hey, they're going to get rid of it. It's not going to be available on disc anymore. How am I going to get that map? And so, yeah, you know, you get these crazy return customers for a great game.
Whenever it's gone on sale, I've bought it for a couple of my friends as well. But I mean, and it would be so easy to port it over. Because I mean, for the love of God, I have Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic on my cell phone. If that can play on a cell phone, Morrowind can play on a cell phone.
Absolutely, and you know, I bet it would pay somebody's paycheck. I mean, it would make some money. It'd make some money, but more importantly, it just reinforced their brand. It reinforced the Elder Scrolls because it's a great game and it can run on mobile. They don't have any mobile games besides Fallout Shelter. They could update it a little bit, just so it works correctly. Like what they did with Vice City. But yeah, I didn't want to get off topic there by suggesting that. But yeah, there's definitely so many opportunities that Bethesda as a publisher and everything could do with Morrowind and Oblivion.
I agree. Like they're sort of doing that with Skyrim now, though, with the whole special edition, legendary edition, porting it over, and now that's coming on the Switch and VR. But we kind of want that for some of the older games because they're not really showing, as you said, that proper respect to like Oblivion and Morrowind, and we really want to see that stuff. We don't want to see more of the same. We want to see this sort of stuff.
Well, and modding could still be alive if they ported it to those other consoles too, because like I was saying, KOTOR I've got on my cell phone, and I can install mods for it. I have to sideload them. It's literally the exact same game ported over with a new control scheme, and I've got the expanded content mod installed. I've got some new lightsaber colors. I mean, you can mod for any platform if you have a determined community for it. And by God, this is a determined modding community. I think we've proven that.
Oh, yes, and on the topic of, bragging about how many copies of Morrowind we all have, I think I've got you all beat. I have over 50 Morrowind copies that I have purchased over the years, mostly to give away to other people and to get them addicted. And, that used to be a big strategy of mine. It's like, hi there, friend, would you like to try some Morrowind? All right, here you go. See you never.
I've been upstaged.
Oh man, you got me beat. I'm ashamed. I need to go buy some more Morrowind copies.
Is that going to be the status symbol of the old modders now? Is how many copies of Morrowind you got piled on your shelves? We're going to be scouring eBay for discs now.
Oh yeah, if you don't have a physical box copy and just tons of box copies that you then built into a fort-like shrine that you have an incense burner at and you just pray at all the time, you're not really a real fan of Morrowind, now are you?
I think it's safe to say that everybody on this podcast has, some Morrowind shrine or other. I'm looking at mine right now. I was praying to it before we began.
I had such a shrine. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to set it back up yet from the move. We're still unpacking boxes, but I've still got all my original discs, the original boxes for the expansions and all that. I've got I've got maps that I need to put back up on the wall. I kept all my crap. I'm a pack rat.
So, not to bash Bethesda or make this a Bethesda bashing fest or anything, especially since I would like to work there one day. I will say, though, again, back to that respect for the series and stuff, they released that anthology, right, with all the games and stuff. Two huge problems, only I noticed. So I got the anthology, it was $60. It actually came out on my birthday, symbolism, right? So I open up, and it has Morrowind in there, and there's a typo. On the writing for Morrowind, it said M. Pryor with an R, and I was just like, it didn't get proofread? What? And then also, you go back to that map, and that map is no longer in color if you buy Morrowind physically now. So you can't get that a physical color map unless you buy an old copy. Which again, what's the point of that? What did they save 70 cents on the dollar on ink? I mean, it really disappointed me. So now to upstage all of you with my own Morrowind shrine, what I did is I bought an Xbox copy Morrowind. I got the color map. I took it to a photo place. I had it scanned to 600 dots per inch, the most high resolution scan in the world. I put it on Reddit somewhere. You could look for it. And then I had it blown up. So I have Morrowind's map blown up on a whiteboard that's like, I don't know, 4 feet high, 3 feet high or whatever. And I can mark little quest locations and mod ideas and stuff. And it's just this beautiful thing. So that's my shrine. Mic drop.
I'm going to steal your shrine.
Yeah, I want that shrine.
It's on Reddit and it costs like $10 to get it printed. Definitely cool investment. That map has so much details in it. It's ridiculous. From little silt strider shells that are scattered on it you never noticed, to little holes in rocks that are not labeled but are actually caves that you can find in game. It's amazing.
I remember looking at that map really close, like leaning in and squinting at all the little details to try to find caves and stuff in my first playthroughs.
Oh yeah, the map was just really richly detailed. That was probably one of my favorite aspects of Morrowind, and something that, unfortunately, newer players don't get. I mean, when you buy the game on Steam, obviously you don't get a physical map with it, and, that's part of the problem why you get all these people complaining about, oh, hey, we need quest markers and things of that nature, because they don't have the physical map next to them, to just sort of figure their way around the world.
That's a great point. When I first played Morrowind, I had that map with me right next to me all the time, and I still didn't find stuff, but it helped with a lot of quests.
I don't think I've ever found everything that Morrowind had to offer. I've tried to do full content clears. I guess there's always something unlisted, something you missed. Years later, I'll still find something that I didn't notice before, and have another moment of realization and fall in love with the game and its detail again.
Well, if anyone knows where Mehrunes Razor is, please contact my 7th grade self and help him out, because I never was able to find that.
Yeah, I remember I went from Oblivion actually back down to Morrowind. I was really, really young when I played Oblivion, and my dad bought me Morrowind for my birthday. I couldn't find anything in the game. I didn't have a map or anything. The copy he bought didn't have a map with it. I had to use Wiki every chance I got. But it's really insane how much, as you say, how much detail's in it. It's just like, I swear I probably haven't even found like half of the stuff left in the game yet. It's just incredible.
Oh yeah, and just sort of going back on topic here, I wanted to ask, are there any big projects that you're secretly working on and going to release in the future, in terms of Morrowind mods?
Well, I'm quite new to Morrowind, so not Morrowind, to Morrowind modding. So there is one that I really want to get out as soon as I'm done with this Rise of the Tribe Unmourned update. I hope it goes well. It's going to be awesome.
I'm working on 2 currently. Now that we're kind of settled in the house, I actually just got everything set up. Our computer room's looking good again, and I'm working on 2 of my mods again. I'm trying to work on Odai Rising, well, of course being the Odai Plateau version of Balisra Rising. And then I'm trying to get back to my Cry of Nature mod that was supposed to be a sequel to Sobatur that's been on hold for years now. I've never forgotten it. I've still saved assets and put them away for it, and I really want to get back to it and actually tell that story.
Well, I have pages and pages of pre-development and notes and even tests and stuff in the construction set for my next mod, which is closer to like an unofficial DLC than even like a small tiny quest mod. But I'm not working on it actively. I am working on some really, really cool stuff. Again, Morrowind is my favorite game of all time, and not a lot of game developers say that. Usually they say some Baldur's Gate or whatever, which whatever. I'm too young for that. So on the stuff moving forward, like, I'm gonna bring back some of that quality, and I already am. The current project I'm working on, again, it's not Morrowind, and it's actually not narrative based. I've got some narrative stuff really, really in the works. It's really great, but is a game that takes place in ancient Egypt. It will be coming out this year, and it's called Akhenaten, Rule as Pharaoh. and it's going to be pretty cool. It's going to be announced either next week or at the latest the week after. But that's what's taking up my time. But I still love Morrowind. That's where my heart is.
Now, this sort of doesn't really have to do with the future of Morrowind, but this is just something that has occurred to me, that we have a majority, I think, quest modders and writers in this podcast today. I think pretty much all of you have made quest mods and have done a lot of writing, so, I kind of want to take this opportunity to ask you, what do you think is the most important aspect when starting a mod or, planning out how to build a mod?
I think it's sort of like with writing and sort of that stuff. It's I think everybody's got their own way of doing it. For me, it's literally just opening up a Google Doc, planning it all out, what I'm going to do first, putting all the quests in there, and then as I go along, I change and fix that stuff up. But yeah, that's just me.
Honestly, I don't follow this advice, but the advice I would give is similar to what he just said. Plan out what you want for the mod, content you want in it, stories you'd like to tell. You don't need the whole story right away, but you just have a general idea of what you want in it and where you want the mod to end or what you want it to do. But personally, I usually just kind of get a general idea in my head, open up the construction set, and just start doing stuff, and it gradually expands from there. And if it becomes a big enough mod, then I have to start taking notes to keep track of it.
So, writing, yeah. I all the stuff that I do in development, coding, all this kind of stuff is a means to an end, and then the end is to move people. So that is what's really important, is just moving. Life is too short to make these kind of casual projects and products and stuff. Like, I really want to make things of brilliance and significance, and to test myself and my own abilities in that. So a lot of thought goes into kind of the iceberg design, where you've got the bottom of the iceberg, but the player only ever sees the tip of it, right? But you've thought of all the background details. My typical writing process, I'd say, is really just pacing around the kitchen, talking to my brother, who's equally creative, and actually came up with the initial idea for my mod, The Lamp, where there's the Daedric god Mephala, and she's got this magical Daedric artifact that you've never heard of that's kind of like a genie in a bottle sort of thing, and will give you, unlimited wishes, etc. That was his concept, and then I just riffed and built from there. And but just pacing, and I write a lot by hand, and yeah, it's a lot of mulling over things goes into it. A lot of you just listen to Jeremy Soule music and it'll just inspire you. It just makes it so easy to write in the Elder Scrolls universe when you listen to the soundtracks from the games, because they have the theme and the feel nailed down so accurately.
Oh yeah, and to just sort of add my own sort of writing process here, typically I just start out with a basic idea, for a quest. Like in Ancient Foes, you've got a hermit, he wants to collect some artifacts or something, and then I start writing out the characters, and I do all the character development, the background, where they come from, what's the story, long before I actually do any of the actual quest writing, the quest writing that the player will see. And I think that's a sort of similar thing that some of you are doing.
Yeah, and I can say that specific to song, it's from Oblivion, Wings of Caeris. Literally, that wrote the 2920 themed portion of The Lamp and portions of my next mod eventually. Literally wrote that. Just listening to that song in my car, I had I download all the songs that I put it on disc and literally just wore out the disc in my car. That's how nerdy I am. I drive around to different Starbucks working on game development, or back then it was mods, listening to Jeremy Soule soundtracks from Oblivion and Morrowind exclusively. To nothing else goes in between. But that music and the inspiration, filling myself in the world, literally wrote the material.
I do have to agree. I do love listening to Jeremy Soule's stuff. If you never have his pieces that he made for Total Annihilation, love them. Love every one of them.
Now, kind of on a slightly different topic here, but still going on with the the quest modding aspect. Is there anything in particular that you really just dislike about modding Morrowind? Like, is there just one aspect that you absolutely hate doing?
I wouldn't say for me it's not necessarily a problem with Morrowind, but it's a problem with writing stuff in general for me. I don't know if you guys get this as well, but when you get really deep into something like, oh my gosh, this is such a cool idea, and you're just rampaging, you're writing, and then the next morning you wake up and you're like, this is really bad, this is too out there. I really hate that feeling, and then you got to start over and you got to remake it so that it fits everything else well. For me, that's probably the worst part about modding or quest modding.
I think all of us have probably been there at some point, but more specifically with problems with modding and Morrowind in general, I've never liked making companion NPCs. It's always something that frustrates me. I've done it, but usually it just involves going and looking at another companion mod and looking at the scripting that they've put in and the dialogue options and just kind of bumming off of that to make it work, because I've never enjoyed making companions.
For me, what I don't like about developing the construction set is dialogue. It's a love-hate relationship, mostly hate, and it's just so confusing. At the same time, it's really unique. It actually I didn't write any of the dialogue outside and then bring it in. I think some people do that. It helped me write, but it's really difficult to everybody, each topic, and there's conditions, and you set it to an NPC, and that's kind of a nightmare, especially when you're doing a quest mod and you're having all these dialogue stuff and all these different conditions for everything. That's the one thing I don't like about construction set.
I have to agree there, definitely. Whenever I was making Ballisra Rising, actually, I had to do a last-minute patch on it because I had messed something up in the dialogue variables, so that you couldn't build any of the expansions beyond a certain point. And Dark Elf guy pointed it out to me, and I had to scour through and see where I put the wrong number.
I'm sort of the same. I find it pretty tedious after a while of writing, and then you keep getting all those typos. You have to keep going back and forth. But for me, I think construction sets specifically, I'm really, really awful at the whole world building aspect, like making interiors and exteriors. That stuff that's my ultimate frustrating thing. I can't do that. I'm so bad at that. Dialogue is it's tedious, but I can get it done, sort of.
On that note, that reminds me, if someone's listening and they want to try getting into Morrowind modding, Dark Elf Guy on Morrowind modding showcases, I believe, has some tutorial videos that are 2 or 3 hours long. They're really good, including what Caeris was saying, which is how to do level designing, and putting character into the level design, not just having, a static kind of house there. And that stuff's really good starting place.
Oh, well, thank you for saying so, and, of course, many of you, I also kind of hate, that planning out with dialogue there with all those separate conditions. I mean, if you have a quest that has, multiple endings especially, it can get really confusing, trying to plan out all the dialogue responses and conditions, and a lot of them are duplicates, and just implementing all that into the CS, takes a ridiculous amount of time.
Yeah, so I counter that because the Merchant Vendis has multiple endings. There's 2 different endings that kind of branch in the middle part of the story. So yeah, dialogue is a nightmare, but it's really worth it too.
I don't think I've ever actually done anything that had multiple endings, but yeah, I've always admired the people who did have the patience to deal with the dialogue functions to make the quests work and branch like that.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't my idea. Again, that's the thing. You use other people who give you great ideas. I was just started working on this story about this merchant that kind of betrays his crew, and he's kind of goofy and sort of funny. And then they get stuck in Sedanine, and there's someone after them. And I just told a friend who really didn't know anything about Morrowind, but played a lot of Fallout New Vegas and likes those types of games, and was like, hey, are you going to have, you should have multiple branching endings, because that's a game that has a lot of that, and he liked it. And I just went huh, all right, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And so then I went through that. So you use, and that what's cool is, I took his idea, but that was kind of the hallmark of that quest. That's why people really like it, because Morrowind's system is really good for that sort of thing, but there's never really multiple endings to any quests, including a lot of mods. So someone else is just suggesting, me following that, instinctively ended up making it, I think, higher quality.
Yeah, I haven't I don't think I've had a multiple ending quest mod yet. I mean, I'm really new, but if you look at like some of the recent stuff I've made, roleplay options for Great House Lalu, for example, some of that was really tedious writing, like all those choices you had and all that, putting that all in and making it all work, and then fixing all those typos, and then yeah, it was insane. And the same thing with my recent Morrowind Modding Madness competition submission with the Ashpit. That was an insane amount of dialogue work. Yeah, very tedious.
Oh yeah, and just, talking about Morrowind Modding Madness here for a second, I have to congratulate you on the excellent writing that you did in the Ash Pit. I mean, that really did make the mod, I think.
Thanks a lot, man. That means a lot. It was a lot of work.
The May Modathon has always been a lot of fun to watch. I've really enjoyed seeing the modding community come together and make that as big of a thing as it is.
Oh yeah, we now have 2 major annual modding competitions. The Morrowind May Modathon in May, and Morrowind Modding Madness that goes through September and October, and the response we've been getting, the number of people who participate in these competitions has been pretty staggering, especially when you compare it to Skyrim. I mean, we actually get more mods released for these competitions than anything similar in the Skyrim modding community, and that really says a lot about how many modders and how many engaged modders we have in this competition. I mean, in this community.
I have struggled to find mods that I consider equal quality to some of the best mods I've played in Morrowind. I've had a difficult time finding their equivalents in Oblivion and Skyrim. There's gems on both of those games, to be sure, especially like the Forgotten City in Skyrim. Love that mod, absolutely love it. And again, multiple endings, really well done. But that's like the exception, not the standard. A lot of what I've seen, it looks like people have just put so much more effort into the Morrowind ones.
I feel like there's a good reason for that too, though. Like, I think it's more to do with like the whole dialogue system that Oblivion and Skyrim does. If you're trying to make a good sort of quest mod or something like that, it's a lot harder to do because you need to think about voice acting. You need to structure it quite differently to how you would do it in Morrowind, where you can just freelance, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because some of my friends have asked me, why I haven't continued my mod for Skyrim. I was working on kind of a Skyrim version of Sobator for a while, and I just kind of stopped and haven't ever looked back at it really, because it's hard to do dialogue. I don't want to do everything through books and carvings on walls. I want to have people have dialogue and talk to and interact, and then that requires voice acting, and then to be able to do that in a way where it meshes well with the rest of Skyrim without having off sounds or stuff like that. It's so much more work.
Yeah, that's so earlier I said that Morrowind was the ultimate storytelling machine, and part of the reason is because of the way the dialogue system works. And when you're moving toward Oblivion and Skyrim, it's harder to make and enjoy as a player a quest mod, even if it's really high quality, for a couple of reasons. One of them being that for example, you probably 1/5 the amount of dialogue, because you can't just have paragraphs and paragraphs of text like you can in Morrowind. But also, no matter how well you get the best voice actors of all time, and it could be the cleanest audio, that you record your NPCs for your quests and be this great cinematic, wonderful piece, it's still going to be inconsistent with the rest of the world in the game. Those Nordic voices that you record still don't sound like the rest of the Nords in Skyrim or whatever. So even if you do a really good job, there's something that feels inconsistent about it for a player. Whereas in Morrowind, you write the dialogue text, and then any voice dialogue you need, the player, like idle dialogue and stuff, it's all in there in the game, so you can make something that feels a lot more timeless, like it belongs in the game, that you can't in Morrowind and Oblivion. It's trickier.
Oh yeah, we've discussed, the kind of issues with Skyrim and Oblivion in terms of making quest mods a lot on this channel in previous interviews and podcasts. The voice acting requirement does really limit quest modding potential for those games, and more than that, I'm not sure how many people actually know this, but Skyrim did not release with a modding toolkit that allowed people to upload silent dialogue. That was not actually something that Skyrim could do originally in the construction kit. You had to have some sort of audio file attached to it. You could not just, write some dialogue in and have the NPCs just have it say it silently. That was not possible. Yeah, it wasn't until ShadeMe, the author of the silent mod for Skyrim, who we interviewed actually in an episode of Oblivion Modding Interviews, a very short-lived series. It wasn't until he made that silent mod for the construction kit that you could actually upload dialogue by itself without having to attach some sort of audio file to it.
And as I understand it, for Oblivion, you update to the Shivering Isles expansion, and you're then going to try and make a mod with that update, and the update that comes with it for the construction set. It breaks the dialogue for Oblivion, so you just can't use it. So you have to use an older version of the game, apparently. That's what I understand.
Well, anyway, point is, Morrowind rocks, Skyrim sucks, etc., etc., etc. We are after all Morrowind modding channel here.
We're an unbiased group.
Completely unbiased.
Oh, yes, and, let's see. I did want to ask, because this is, something that's certainly a possibility in the future, with OpenMW and the OpenCS. If there is one thing that you could currently change with the construction set, given that it is certainly a possibility that that thing could probably be updated and improved going into the future with the OpenMW team, what is the one thing you would change and perhaps make easier?
Well, mine's already sort of done with Open Morrowind. It's the sort of scripting system. I'm really bad at scripting, as Enclave Killer, my partner with Morrowind Modding Competition, will tell you. We were working on this activator script, and it worked perfectly fine in Open Morrowind, perfectly fine. Then we go into normal Morrowind, and it was completely broken. And I keep coming across stuff like this where there's just things that just don't work in script-wise with the Morrowind engine, but then you come across Open Morrowind's engine, it's just so good. For
me, I think it would be just a little box you could check whenever you're making an NPC that would make them, a basic companion with, follow, share inventory, that sort of thing. Just to simplify that process, and then you can just focus on adding dialogue and telling your story instead of having to troubleshoot. Adding dialogue for this specific person of follow and then their responses, and then it's such a pain.
Those are good answers. I'm not sure what I would suggest that they add. I do know that when I released the lamp, at first, I made the lamp in the normal editor construction set. And then later, I had the lovely experience of then moving it to be Open Morrowind compatible. And there was a bunch of really just super arcane, weird bugs that, I think were honestly basically to do with Open Morrowind, where, I'm having this rat that's on a flying carpet move from one part of the room to another. So basically I'm setting his position, on like an X-axis and increasing it. But for some reason, in the normal Morrowind, he just stays where he is. But for some reason in the Open Morrowind version, he's rotating as he's doing it, and eventually we got it all worked out, but there's I had to basically freeze him in position, and just really arcane things like that maybe they could improve on, specifically by looking at mods that aren't Morrowind compatible, that will kind of test the engine, that don't do things that normal vanilla Morrowind do or try. Like my mod had a bunch of just weird stuff it was trying, and so for that reason I ended up seeing a lot of the stuff that didn't work in OpenMW at the time.
Now, sort of going along with the OpenMW topic, obviously there's a lot changing in the community right now with that, and the TS3MP project, with sort of a modding scene developing right there, with mods being designed specifically for OpenMW and TS3MP. In fact, I've seen, I think it's about 5 or 6 mods now get released that are actually Morrowind multiplayer exclusive, and there's been dozens of OpenMW mods that have come out this year. Do you think that's going to, really develop and flourish into its own sort of modding scene in the coming years? And do you think we'll eventually see more people coming to the Morrowind modding community as a result of, all these new things like Morrowind multiplayer?
I think definitely. I mean, with the fact that Morrowind's open source and all that, it just makes it so incredible. I mean, the sky's the limit. Really, people can just come along and do what they want with it, and with the multiplayer, that just helps it that much more get off the ground. I mean, it's only going to get bigger from here, in my opinion.
Definitely. I mean, we're 15 years into the game, and it's still extremely popular because modders are making more and more content. They're bringing it to the newer games. They're bringing it to the open source. Even the MMO is referencing Morrowind again now. And every time you create content like that comes back to that original game, it's getting it more and more attention. Because 15 years later, I'm still turning on friends and people I'm meeting to Morrowind, and they're loving it. One of my friends just started playing it. I just went back and checked my chat logs with him about 6 weeks ago. He had never played Morrowind, and I got him to finally install it and play it, and he fell in love with it way more than he ever loved Skyrim. And it's something that can only continue to grow to me.
I just want to add to the last thing I said as far as the lamp and getting it OpenMW compatible. That was mostly due to someone who I met through Reddit online named Natalie Goring, who handled all of that. If it wasn't for them, I would not have been able to get the lamp compatible for OpenMW whatsoever, which would have been a shame because I really like OpenMW now that I've learned about it, and most people are starting to use it, so you kind of have to, if you're making a mod, it has to be OpenMW compatible if you really want it to get any kind of attention. And as far as the answer to the question you just asked, yes, multiplayer, that's going to be the shining star to attract people to Morrowind for the next several years.
Now, kind of going back on topic here, generally speaking, games over time, kind of lose their audiences a bit, though that hasn't exactly happened with Morrowind. I mean, again, it's been 15 years, going on 16 years, and while the, peak Morrowind audience has sort of come and passed, over the last 3 years, actually, the modding community has been releasing more and more mods. Do you think we've hit our sort of peak potential in terms of the modding community, or do you think that there is definitely room to expand and grow with the community, especially with these, again, these big projects that are going on? Do you think that we'll actually see a big resurgence in terms of the Morrowind modding community?
I think it's going to be a big resurgence, as you say. I mean, it's only getting better. The multiplayer, there's Open Morrowind, there's you showing all these awesome showcases, there's the Discord now, which is bringing everybody together. It's insane. It's just going to get better. There's going to be more and more mods, there's going to be more people. I think we're going to hit our peak soon, well, if we ever do, I think it's just going to keep growing,
It's definitely already growing, and I think it's only going to grow more and more rapidly. Like you mentioned, the Discord server for Morrowind modding has been a really good asset for a lot of us to be able to talk, share ideas, get feedback from fellow modders before we put out public builds of things, so we can put out more and more refined things. And it's even gotten us in contact. Some of us don't have the ability to make 3D models or something like that. So, it's gotten us in contact with people who can, or, help with a script that we just can't figure out. There's been a couple of times I've pasted a script into the Discord, and the other modders have helped me figure out what's going wrong with it.
Well, great games, dividends over time, and, it's not just our opinions that Morrowind is considered one of those greatest games ever made. So it's one of those things where, the community will just keep growing, and it's never going to go pretty much dead or anything like that. As far as the last 3 years, I think it's gone up so much, hugely, and I'm not saying this just to be like complimentary, but I would legitimately credit you, Dark Elf Guy, for why the community has gotten so big. Just me as one little node of that Morrowind modding experience. I released that mod, and just having the community kind of come around it because of your reviews and doing these showcases and stuff, that inspired me then to get more into game development. Now I have a game development company. Last month I organized and hosted the largest game jam to ever happen, as far as anybody knows, in Las Vegas. We had over 60 people show up, a lot of them new developers. But if you trace back the dominoes that led to that, and a lot of those developers are now getting into game development because of that. So I organized that, but your attention to my mods and modding led to me organizing that for those people. So I'm just one little domino, and you got to think like everybody who makes these mods, when there's attention brought to them through a community and they're appreciated, that affects them in huge ways, that then leads to inspiring other people to get into game development or into modding further for Morrowind.
Exactly, and I think, honestly, bigger picture-wise as well, like, the entire modding community is just so... It's so different to all other sort of game communities out there. The people are so nice, so helpful. Like, it really is like a welcoming sort of environment to modern. It's brilliant, and yeah, a lot of it is owed to you, Dark Elf Guy.
Definitely. I mean, I've never encountered anyone rude in the Discord or anywhere that anywhere while I've been modding. Honestly, I've never had someone just flat out, come at me being negative, giving nothing but horrible feedback. It's always been positive, constructive feedback. And the worst I've encountered is, somebody who's just too busy to respond to you. And, that's not really that big of a deal. We've all got real lives.
That sounds like a typical statement from an ESO player.
Wait, what? What are you trying to say? I'm only level 15. I just finally got internet good enough to play this, and I'm enjoying it, damn it.
Hey,
I thought you said you liked WoW.
I own
You
twice as
that
many
WoW.
Morrowind copies as you, so watch out.
Oh, my pride, my dignity is shattered.
But you are twice as good a modder as me, for sure, so I'll give you that.
You'll never hear me say it. I don't think anyone's any better than anyone else. Just sometimes we get a good idea and we get lucky and run with it.
Cool, but yeah, look at us all, man. We're all a tight gang, and we've met, just here for the first time. But I think probably, Morrowind is such a great game that you don't get a lot of. Yeah, you get. You know what I said? The one thing you notice is you get a lot of pretentious people, and when there's something really great, because Morrowind is so artistic and artful. But yeah, everybody's so nice. No one's mean. It's pretty great.
I've never even really ran into anyone like that. I mean, I've ran into a couple of guys who couldn't take constructive feedback whenever I was trying to inform them of a bug about their mod, and their response was just kind of along the lines of, oh, well, whatever, it's not that big of a deal, I'll get to it eventually. But nothing over the top rude or anything.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've seen a few people like that. They're not really rude people. They're just they're sort of like, have you ever seen that running joke that's currently going on about Rick and Morty? You need a high IQ to understand Rick and Morty. There's a lot of those sort of. There's not a lot. There's a few of those people, I'd say, but they're not bad people. They're not really rude. They're still quite nice guys. They're just yeah.
Oh yeah, and just sort of going along with that. I mean, this is a very friendly community, I think, in the grand scheme of things. I have considered, branching the channel out into Skyrim, but after all the drama the Skyrim modding community always attracts all the time, it seems, it's like, nope, going back to Morrowind. Forget that.
I would have no problem with that. I would love to see more Skyrim stuff from you, but I totally know what you mean.
Yeah, I've been an administrator and moderator for lots of roleplay communities, like in Minecraft especially. The egos you run into are ridiculous. There are a couple of mod authors I've been in contact with, and if you say anything negative about their mods, they like have a blacklist to where you can't log into a server using their mod anymore, and they just slap you on it because you didn't praise them.
Sort of like with the whole Train Wars thing. I'm not going to name any names, but how that everybody knows what happened there. That was a bit silly. There are people like that out there, and thankfully there's not many of them with Morrowind.
Oh yeah, we don't have well, too many trolls, or at least not very many trolls anymore. We had a few back in the day, but as Morrowind has matured, most of them have moved on.
Real life dominates all of us eventually. I mean, 15 years ago, I was 14 years old, and I had all the time in the world to sit there and waste my life on Morrowind and World of Warcraft and everything else that would that would come to follow it and consume my soul for a while. And then real life hits you eventually. You got to work, you got to pay bills, you got to take care of a kid, you get married. You lose time for things, but you still find time for the stuff you love.
That's a great approach. What a great attitude. I love that.
I like that.
Yeah.
Now, this is kind of a different question than the ones I usually ask, but I was kind of curious. Do you think there's any potential pitfalls that the community might run into going into the next few years that might, I don't know, turn people off from Morrowind modding, or potentially draw people away?
The only one I really see is that if the multiplayer and if Open Morrowind, they get really big and they get a ton of publicity, then that initial publicity, like as we see with a lot of other popular games and stuff, that usually attracts a lot of toxic people to come into the community, and you don't really want those toxic people, and those will scare people away. And but I have some level of confidence that probably won't happen.
I do have a little bit of worry for the same reason with the multiplayer. Of people coming in and wanting you to update your mods to be able to work with the multiplayer, or something like that. Like I've already had a couple of people right on the cusp of rude asking me, "Hey, when are you going to update your stuff to work with Open Morrowind?" And I told them flat out, I don't know. Right now, never. Maybe eventually. I don't have the time. And I'd love to update and mod for it, but I barely have the time to finish what I'm already working on.
So I would say it's not unreasonable to assume that within 2 years you might see basically Openmw Morrowind MMO, where there's these servers with 14, 15 people. But what happens when it gets up to 64 people? And then maybe they rewrite stuff and then it can support more people than that, 128 people or something. And it's this MMO that draws attention, which it totally will inevitably become because it's so tight already. And what happens when they have a mod that really works that lets you have a player house and save everything on the server and stuff. What Caeris said is a concern, I guess. And then I would say anything to do with paid mods, maybe. That's a whole different topic, but
yes.
Yeah, right. Bethesda's doing their creation club right now, and I don't know.
They're not paid mods, we swear.
We swear. Promise. So I don't know. Thankfully, I'm not playing a lot of games right now. I'm not making mods for the Morrowind community or anything, so it's something that doesn't affect me. But yeah, there's something when you get money involved in anything, then it takes freedoms away, and you get issues.
Yeah, all I've ever done is open up the donation thing on Netsys, and people have the option to donate to me if they want to. I think I've gotten $3 over all the years of modding that I've ever done. And
that was my next question.
I'm very grateful for that $3. Like, hey, they actually gave me money for it. Awesome. I never expected to make a penny. I still don't expect to make anything off of it. It's not something I think we should be trying to make money off of, frankly. You should be doing it for the love of this game, not trying to make a quick buck. That's just going to lower your quality as you try to pump out more stuff.
Agreed, 100%.
I agree as well. I don't personally think paid mods or anything will probably ever come to Open Morrowind because of Bethesda can't really come in and say you can't do this anymore, sort of thing. I mean they did it with the mobile thing, but it's not really it's not their engine sort of thing. So I think we're sort of fine there, but same time, I don't know.
And I guess Bethesda's sort of a victim of its own success. I mean, I understand exactly where they're coming from. They have to carry a big stick, to warn off, this kind of stuff.
Copyright law is complicated as hell, too. I mean, there's a lot of times where companies have had to crack down on something, and, they'll even say in a public statement, we really like this project. We really don't want to have to come down on it. If we don't, then that's going to be setting a standard that other projects we don't want made now have permission. I mean, protecting an IP is a very complicated thing, especially under US law.
Oh yes, it's definitely kind of, unfortunate that Bethesda is going the whole paid mods route again after the disaster that was 2015. I mean, we released a video back then, like why you should still make mods in 2015, arguing against all the nonsense with paid mods, and here we are again, and feels like we're just sort of renewing the whole cycle again now. There's a bunch of people who are really angry about it. They're writing negative reviews about Bethesda games, including Morrowind, even though it has nothing to do with the whole paid mod scandal. And we're just going through this cycle again until Bethesda eventually, inevitably, shuts down the Creation Club, and then we start over.
The most popular mod recently is to remove Creation Club notifications. That's gotta say something.
So, Dark Elf Guy, you said something interesting there. You said inevitably. Do you think it's inevitable that Creation Club's going to be shut down? And if so, what would you put like a timetable on that for?
I'd say it probably has a longer lifespan than the original Moneyed Mods attempt, because, that lasted, a weekend or a week? It wasn't very long. They clearly put a bit more thought.
That was very short.
They've clearly put a bit more thought into this, so I'm going to say, on the long end, maybe 3 to 4 months. On the short end, I'd say it might be dead by the end of October.
Wow!
Really? That soon? I gave it about a year myself for everybody to just be fed up with it, and there to be so many cracked ESPs out there that activate all the content that they're forcing you to download anyway, that it'll just become pointless and they'll get rid of it.
I think it might not go away that fast, to be honest. If you look at I think you might want to look at the bigger picture and think, with microtransactions as a whole in the gaming community, and think, is this ever going to go away? Are people... And I think microtransactions will go away eventually. If you look at game studios going back to their roots, with the whole Divinity Original Sin and all that. But then on the opposing end, you see things like what's happening with ESO, with all those microtransactions you can get involved in. And I mean, they're not. Is that going away anytime soon? I mean, is it going to go away anytime soon in Skyrim? Is it going to go? I don't know.
What's your definition of soon?
Oh, a few years at least, to be honest.
No. The answer is no. All MMOs are moving to microtransactions of some sort. I mean, the Old Republic, ESO, World of Warcraft, Guild Wars, all of them have microtransactions because it's immensely successful. I mean, if you look at the Old Republic, they were originally subscription-based. I played it from launch. I played it pre-launch in the alpha and the beta. And the game that it is now is what it should have been at launch for it to be worth a subscription. But now, I think they said after their first year of going free to play with microtransactions, they had tripled all the profit that they'd made previously.
Yeah, but then that's a really good point. So then is Skyrim going to follow suit? Is Creation Club ever going to go away? I mean, it's not entirely microtransactions. I get what people are saying, but it's not really microtransactions like every other game handles it. They're not taking things out of the game to put in that you have to pay extra for. They're just adding things onto the game. So is that the same situation there? Is it really that big of a problem?
Well, let's be realistic here. The older ones of us will remember games used to be all physical, and then there were physical expansions that had to have significant content or they wouldn't sell. Now that's all moved to DLC, where you got DLC of all different sizes. I mean, you've got things like for Skyrim, you've got Dragonborn, Hearthfires, and those are both considered DLC, but they're very obviously vastly different types of content and amount of content. And then you've got the microtransactions that to add in cosmetic things, and people love to customize. That's what modding is all about, is customizing. But let's be realistic. Right now, they're testing the waters for Fallout 5 and Elder Scrolls 6. They want to implement this harder, and they're testing the waters right now.
I think it's safe to say that microtransactions is the hot topic for games right now in the last couple of years, and probably going forward. But Caeris is of a point that is there's a right way to do microtransactions and a wrong way, and the wrong way is going to really hurt that kind of medium. It's kind of like apps used to, or games on mobile used to just have advertisements that were kind of intrusive. But that became so annoying, and that the ad clicks went down. So the ads were valueless, so they had to come up with another way to make money. Microtransactions could, if they continue to do the wrong thing, get that bad flavor to them. And it's funny because you want to think of the right way to make microtransactions, Bethesda practically invented them. Horse armor, the thing that everybody complained about. But the thing is that's content created by them at a microtransaction price. You don't need it to play the game, but it adds a little bit of a feature. And that's, I would say, more close to the right way to do it, whereas paid mods is maybe the wrong way.
Paid mods has just always felt like they're trying to make a competition within the modding community of who's good enough to make money. And I'm never going to submit a single thing to Creation Club because I don't want to be in that competition. I'm not here to compete. I'm here to make stuff I like.
Yeah, you'll make a lot more money making a game than you will with a mod.
You're never going to make a fortune making mods. It just won't happen.
I've got a bit of a controversial opinion on the Creation Club. Personally, I don't have a problem with it. I'm probably going to buy a few of the creations for Skyrim. Some of them look pretty decent. I mean, the Crusader armor looks amazing. I'm going to buy that for sure. But I get what people are complaining about. You've got this fear of seeing how other games treat microtransactions and fearing that, is Skyrim going to follow suit? Are they going to take stuff out of the game and then make you pay extra for that, or are they just going to keep adding on to it and keep giving these modders an opportunity to get their voices out there and get into these, get a big score sort of thing? I mean, I don't think anybody really knows for certain, but I think the fear's there. I think that's what's really holding down the Creation Club, in my opinion.
Well, Creation Club's got a big stigma to overcome too, because the 2015 paid mods put a bad taste in everyone's mouth, especially with every schmuck reposting mods they didn't make, trying to make a quick buck off of it before Steam pulled the plug.
Personally, right now, I don't really see how the Creation Club can survive long term. I mean, it doesn't really have a platform seller. You know how when a new console releases, you have to have that big game thing in order to hook people. The Creation Club just doesn't have that. I mean, what they have, is the Pip-Boy skins and some armor mods and things like that, though the community has arguably made largely better mods than those already that are free. And really, the thing that could potentially sell the Creation Club is if they went in a more content mod-like direction, like we were discussing, the issue of quest mods and voice acting. If Bethesda, lended some of these modders the voice actors they use in games like Fallout 4 and let them make quest mods using those voice actors, that could potentially be the sort of content that could sell a platform like the Creation Club. But right now, they're just going in the seemingly completely wrong direction for it to last.
Yeah, what I thought at first, which I thought was actually pretty clever, was that this was going to allow large DLC-type mods to come from actual established game development studios so that it could be like, oh, look, the mod by Obsidian Entertainment or whatever, and then that would totally sell the platform. But as I understand it, it's only for really small stuff. There's a cap on download size and all that.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think it's probably either going to adapt then, or maybe just die out. I think it would be really good if it does adapt to it, because like you said, Maui, that'd be insane. If Obsidian made like a cool as mod and that got on the Creation Club, everybody would buy that. That'd be great, and I think they would get rid of that whole stigma of it being bad, and I think that'd be the right way of going about it.
I think one type of mod that I could support Creation Club use for would be big total conversions. But again, if there's a limited size, that can be very difficult to do. But total conversions, good ones, take a lot of effort, a lot of work, and a lot of man hours. So I could see something like that going on the Creation Club for a few bucks, and them getting some kind of compensation back for it, because you're essentially getting a whole new game to play inside of the game.
I feel like there's a big problem there, though, with the Creation Club at the moment. that it doesn't really allow people to do that. I mean, it allows like outside developers, like those sort of companies to do it, but for small-time modders, I mean, how are they going to sort out like the pay for like big groups like Beyond Skyrim, for example? What if they wanted to release something on Recreation Club? They wouldn't be able to like do it to that scale. Sort of something like that out would be really tough on their end, I reckon.
No, they'd still have to develop the entire thing hobbyist and then just release it on the Creation Club when it was done. I mean, there would be no pay along the way by that structure.
Oh yeah, I mean, I kind of think it's a bit absurd that we've, come back full circle like this. I mean, the first podcast we ever did on the channel, the podcast we did in 2015, was a month after this whole pay modding fiasco thing, and we had Trainwiz and Dark Knight and Nelco on there, and we were all like, oh yes, paid modding is horrible, they're probably going to try and do this again, and here we are, they've tried to do it again, and it's just crazy.
I remember you saying that. I was almost going to be on that podcast, but I got busy or something, I don't remember. And I remember sort of hearing the review of it, and it was like, yeah, everybody just talks about this paid mod nonsense. I'm like, well, I'm glad I wasn't part of that, and now look what's happened.
And now fate has come back for you.
Fate has come back. I'm like the Nerevarine of the paid mod discussion.
So, anyway, I guess, since we are Morrowind modders, it really doesn't affect us anyway, right? I mean, it's not like they're ever going to try and do something with Morrowind.
I really don't think so, unless like the Open Morrowind community themselves were like, oh hey, we're introducing our own version of payment. But I don't think that would work at all, or would be possible in any way, but yeah.
But yeah, hopefully this never affects us as Morrowind modders. If it ever does, I think they're gonna see another huge outrage on their hands again.
So as I hear, the strategy then is to hide in plain sight. As long as Morrowind is popular enough to have an active, vibrant community, but subtle and underrated enough to not be noticed by the Bethesda money machine, then we'll be all right.
So Bethesda not giving it the proper respect it deserves might be a good thing then.
Is that weird? Wow.
That's a little weird.
On the topic of Skyrim, actually, I know we actually haven't really talked about Skywind at all. I know this is like the future of Morrowind, so it's a bit weird, but what are your thoughts on Skywind and all that stuff?
Me and a lot of people I know are very much looking forward to Skywind. I cannot wait to play it.
I'm skeptical and I have doubts about it.
I'm pretty much the same, but I don't know. I feel like I'll play through it a couple times and then probably go back to Morrowind. But do you think it's like gonna kill off the Morrowind community a bit? That people don't want to go back to Morrowind because of Skywind?
No, absolutely not. It's going to be a neat, shiny, sexy-looking, updated graphics Morrowind that we're going to play through a couple of times just to see how good or bad of a job that they did. Peek it a bit, and then we're going to go back to Morrowind.
Yeah, isn't that what happened with Morrowind Oblivion as well, or something?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I can elaborate if anybody's curious. I don't want to just be the negative person on it, though. But I think if it was going to come out, it would be out by now, like finished, I mean. I know you can, whatever, beta it, but and I'm worried that it's not going to be fun, because people will be playing it looking like, oh, look, the textures, it looks so good, and the 3D model on that net and stuff. And that's not really playing a game. And it's difficult to translate the experience of Morrowind from Morrowind's mechanics, actually, and the way you play it, to the Skyrim engine. It's not the right story to tell in it. But anyway, that's besides the point.
I can agree to that. I've got some friends that judge games entirely upon the resolution and the level of graphics, and I hate those friends. And you all know who you are if you're listening to this.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I've tried convincing people to play Morrowind, friends, and they'll go like, oh, actually, I've tried to convince people to play Oblivion who love Fallout 3, and I go, it's the same graphics, it's even better looking, actually. It's the same basic time period, same engine, same console. But people are like, but the face looks weird, and which is not true. But
do you know how amazing Morrowind looked at the time when it came out? I remember them doing a dev discussion, and they were talking about how they actually had to tone down the flapping mouths of the original models because the flapping mouths actually moved with the words properly. And it was like freaking people out or something. So they had to make the mouths just kind of flap randomly instead to not freak people out.
That's fascinating. I never heard that. I did read somewhere that someone said that the water was a really big deal at the time. The water looked really realistic. You got to remember that Morrowind basically launched Xbox, the original Xbox, It was a few months after the Xbox was on the market and out. I think Morrowind came out in May, right?
So yeah, that's where I first played it.
Yeah.
Was the original Xbox on my friend's Xbox. It's what made me buy an Xbox.
Yeah. And then Oblivion, of course, launched the 360. One of the first games available on 360, and was that a quantum leap in quality and graphics? Oh my goodness!
And I mean, if you really want to, you can make Morrowind look almost as good as Oblivion with the right mods.
I dare say better. Yeah, there's some insanely good mods out there.
There are actually.
The best one I would say, and I haven't used it, but is that Morrowind watercolored, because it looks so original. It doesn't really stray from vanilla. Whereas if you do like these overhaul mods, they change too much, and it spoils the magic of whatever was going on in Bethesda in 2001 and 2 when they're developing it. Something that is a low key like texture replacer is what you want if you want to keep kind of the original feeling, which is part of the experience.
Okay,
Yeah.
like I've seen people try to do 1K and 2K textures for Morrowind stuff. I'm like, why? No matter how many pixels you shove on it, the polygons are still pretty angular.
Yeah.
I think my favorite one, I know you said watercolored, my favorite one is Dark Nuts. I love, which I found thanks to Dark Elf Guy's video. That was incredible. I can't play without his texture pack. It sticks so close to the vanilla textures and looks so good.
I love all of Dark Nuts stuff. I really do. His Dwemer models are heavily part of what made my Sobator stuff possible.
He's definitely one of the best.
Oh yeah, and since we're talking about graphics, one of the things that kind of drives me crazy a bit is, all these people today who go around saying, oh, Morrowind had terrible graphics even when it released. It was like a PS1 game. And I'm like, Morrowind won several awards for having the best graphics of 2002. Clearly, you don't know what you're talking about.
Have you ever played the original Spyro game? Those graphics are awful. That is a PlayStation game. And it's still a fun game.
Yeah, so among games that have aged really well and ones that have aged really bad, Morrowind has aged very, very well. Because I went and looked, like I was mentioning Grand Theft Auto earlier. I was looking at Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, a game I knew and loved. Oh my gosh, the graphics. I can't imagine. It was so worse. It's worse than Morrowind. Absolutely. And Morrowind's it's not pixelated. It's not like Daggerfall where you go, whoa, this is really hard to look at. It's not, it doesn't have, it basically it escaped that kind of 90s, video game look. It's aged really well if you compare to other kind of games from the time, and you go see them now, and it's pretty shocking.
I mean, go from Daggerfall to Redguard. I mean, Redguard is so blocky, but you can see the clear stepping stone that it was towards Morrowind. Redguard, I still think, was a great Elder Scrolls game, but it's hard to play and it's hard to look at. It really is. I have to admit that. But it is the clear stepping stone that led to Morrowind.
I think going on Morrowind has aged well. I think a lot of it has to do with the whole less is more notion. I mean, you see Bethesda's releasing now, not to hate on Bethesda again and again, but with the whole Fallout 4 high resolution patch being 50 gigabytes big, and then you look at Morrowind's size and it's like under a gigabyte, man. And then you go and you look at the texture packs and they're so small. It's so easy to use, and you don't come across all these bugs and glitches that break your game like you do with Oblivion crashing every 30 minutes sort of thing. It's so concrete because it's so, I dare say, almost simple. It's so simple in comparison that it works so well.
That is something that overwhelms me, not just with Skyrim and Fallout, but all games now. I love XCOM, the old ones, the new ones, I love them. But the game is so big. Whenever War of the Chosen came out, I sat down and I hadn't moved yet. I was still on my cell phone internet. I'm like, this download's bigger than my data cap. And then you look at Morrowind and all of its expansions and a good selection of mods will still be under a gig.
Another thing I noticed we haven't quite talked about with the Future of Morrowind is the whole Tamriel Rebuilt project. I mean, isn't that just jaw-dropping? I've been following that for so many years now. Isn't that just incredible?
I've been awestruck by that project so many times. I've wanted to hop in and help out, but I've just never really felt like I could fit into it. I'm sure I could, but I've always been awestruck by the amount of content that comes out with all of their big releases, and I think they've done a beautiful job.
Yeah, I got my girlfriend recently into Morrowind. I know it was tough to do. And she was like, "Oh my god, this game is so big! It's so incredible!" I'm like, "Yeah." And I showed her the map of Tamriel built, and she dropped her jaw, and she's like, "Oh my, what? How is this even possible for a mod? How does this happen?"
Yeah, the amount of land they've added, Jesus.
It's a country. It's a country that happens to be on a disc.
I mean, Vardenfell itself is a respectable size anyway. Then you're adding the rest of the mainland, and it's enormous.
To give Bethesda some love now, I will say, like, they're the only company to keep doing this. They're putting nations and countries on discs and then calling them video games, but they're not. They're not comparable to anything else out there. And I don't know why some equal competitor doesn't just, do that as well. But they're so original, and that's one of the coolest things about Morrowind and Oblivion and Skyrim, all of them included.
Well, I mean, the amount of space you've always got in their open world and all of their games. Even on ESO, you don't have the entirety of Tamriel yet, but what's there is still pretty massive. So, speculation. Where do you think Elder Scrolls 6 is going to take place, and what do you think the story is going to be?
Caeris, you go first.
All right. I think it's definitely going to be Somerset Isle. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing something else, but I think they've been building up to with the Sigil Order storyline and the Civil War, like there's going to be another war and all that stuff. It's almost definitely going to happen. And Somerset Isle, I don't think they're going to do Mages Guild again. I think they'll probably do it where you join the Sigil Order, and I think a lot of people are going to hate it because they're going to be like, well, that's not how they're supposed to be. But yeah, I definitely think Somerset Isle's next.
Okay, so if you play Morrowind, especially Tribunal, it's pretty clear that the next game was going to take place in Cyrodiil, and then it did. If you play Oblivion, I don't know if it's as clear, but for some reason it was so clear to me when I played it back in 2006, 2007, that the next game was going to be Skyrim. I just knew it. I just intuitively or whatever. I think there was just hang out in Bruma. You just tell it was on their thoughts and their minds.
I think Cloud Ruler Temple helped with that because you were always hearing about the Akaviri and going north and.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money there. So for some reason, the vibe I got from Skyrim was just an extra attention paid to the Khajiits. So there just was more attention to detail with them and more talk of them than any other race, really. More so than Dark Elves, obviously, and more so than even Hammerfell. And there's just something there. So if I were to go with my instincts, I would say strong instincts toward Elsewhere. But then I kind of read some stuff on Reddit that convinced me Valen would. So I would go for one of those two, and if not, maybe they will break their own tradition and have them both take place in one game because they share the same land space.
That would be pretty incredible. But I think another possibility, if you look at what happened with Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, there was that whole side quest with the whole synths thing. And then obviously in Fallout 4, they expanded upon that with the synths.
Yep.
Now, there was one quest in Skyrim very much like that. And that was the Redguard quest with the whole Alakir thing. And I think there could possibly be a chance that you were going to Hammerfell for the next game, I reckon.
Oh, very possible. Honestly, I don't know where next game is going to take place. I mean, Somerset Isle makes a lot of sense. There were rumors about that for a while. Valenwood is where my gut was for a while, but honestly, right now, I don't really know where it's going to take place. But they have definitely been building up Aldmeri Dominion, and I think it's probably going to be Somerset Isle, because we're seeing the Empire fall apart, and I think for that to happen, the head of the serpent has to be cut, and right now, the Aldmeri Dominion is that serpent. But I think a story, I don't know if they're going to get to it in Elder Scrolls 6. I'm not sure when they'll get to it, but a story that I've been seeing build up, kind of. I've always been heavily into the Dwemer lore and the stories. I've exhausted myself looking into everything Dwemer that there is in all of the games and all of their lore, anything that they've even talked about outside of the game. And one thing that I think is building up is a dragon break. I think the Dwemer disappeared in a dragon break, and it hasn't resolved yet. And I think when it resolves, it's going to be catastrophic for us, because the Dwemer are going to be back, just as powerful as ever. And I think that's going to be a serious, oh god, we're all going to die moment for us.
That'd be interesting, but I hope they don't go that route. Just in the same way, I hope they don't show us Akavir, because it's one of those weird just tropes where it's always better, more interesting what you don't see than what you see.
Yeah.
That's what made me fall in love with the Dwemer. I have to agree there.
Yeah.
I see them building it up in a way. I don't know if they'll ever pursue it, but
I think
the disappearance of the dwarves has just always been, since at least Morrowind for me, just this enormous mystery that I want to solve, but I love that it's a mystery.
I think they did do Somerset Isle, and they did do the City Quarter as like the Mages Guild sort of quest line. I think it's entirely possible that they would look into like a Dwemer sort of main quest for that faction. I think that'd be really, really cool. Where I'm not sure how it would work, but that'd be really neat.
All right, Dark Elf guy, you've been silent. Tell us, where is the next one? I know you know. Come on, tell us. Where is the next Elder Scrolls?
You have to know everything.
Exactly.
I would say maybe Valenwood, I think, is certainly a possibility, though I don't really care either way. Morrowind is my home. I'm never going to move. Screw everything else. Now, anyway, we've kind of been getting off topic here, but, we were talking about before about Tower Rebuilt, and, that's one of the really exciting things going forward is, of course, the province mods. We got Tower Rebuilt, Skyrim Home of the Nords, Province Cyrodiil, and potentially, the Strauss McCoy mod, if it ever actually gets released in any sort of state. There was a new alpha version that was released for it in, I want to say, July. And, that's all very interesting. And, these big province mods, I really think, those are kind of the hallmark of what people think of when they think of the Morrowind modding community.
I know, I'm really looking forward to the next Province Cyrodiil release, or another piece of the Skyrim. I think those mods are incredible. They've lasted this long and they're still going at it, and it's great. I just hope they never die out. They're so good.
The province mods are definitely a lot of fun. If Province Cyrodiil is the same mod I'm thinking of, I haven't played it in a while, but years back, Cyrodiil was the very first province mod that I ever went into, and it was massive and so very unfinished, but still fascinating to see a whole new land area available to me.
Yeah, province mods, very exciting. Big highlight, I think, for the future of Morrowind.
Am I the only one though who finds it a bit funny that these poor projects working on Cyrodiil and then Skyrim, and then suddenly Bethesda comes along and does it anyway? Well, they're still working on theirs. I know it's completely unintentional, but it's
It's the nature of the beast. I mean, they're a giant professional development studio, and we're a bunch of modders who like to do this in our spare time. So I mean, something like Tamriel Rebuilt. If Bethesda decided to come do another Morrowind with the whole mainland, guarantee they could get it pumped out in a couple of years, no problem, maybe less. But they're not going to. We all know that. But it's definitely been fun seeing the new games come out and watching a province mod either fall apart or decide to stick to its original vision and say screw the new game.
Yeah, it's really cool seeing all those different interpretations. I really like that.
Like Tamriel Rebuilt, whenever ESO came out, a whole bunch of people were asking them, well, hey, you've got the landscape of mainland Morrowind now. Are you just going to copy that? Well, no, we've already put in all this work, and we're going to do our vision for it.
Plus, no offense to ESO, but their vision of the Morrowind mainland is rather lacking when compared to Tower Rebuilt.
Yeah, it is, and I think that's also the nature of the two different projects. One's an MMO, and no matter how much you might love MMOs, they will never have the detail of a single-player game, and especially one with a passionate modding community that wants to have attention to detail, like Tamriel Rebuilt.
But going on, it is rather interesting, some of these projects do predate the games that eventually took place in the same provinces, like the Skyrim Home of the Nords project started in 2005. That's 6 years before Skyrim came out. And obviously they're going to stick pretty much to their own vision. And actually Province Cyrodiil, I think, came out or was started after Oblivion. Though it is interesting that Cyrodiil in particular had two other major modding projects that were based on it before Oblivion came out. There was the Imperial City one, and then you had the Dawn of Oblivion mod that sort of fell apart in 2007.
I do remember the Imperial City one. That's the one I was talking about before. That was the first province mod I ever got to do. And I remember that one falling apart after Oblivion launched.
Now, I have to ask, are any of you excited about perhaps one day, playing Skyrim, Cyrodiil, Morrowind Mainland, and all that in a Morrowind multiplayer server? Because, that is something that you can almost do already, because you can play Tamriel Rebuilt with the Morrowind multiplayer mod. You can technically play Skyrim Home of the Nords, the part that's actually finished, and, the Province Cyrodiil, Island of Stirk, and all that, in the Morrowind multiplayer mod, and eventually, if they ever actually finish, you'll be able to play all of it seamlessly.
That'd be really incredible, honestly. With all those players, as Dagoth was saying before, like up to over 60 players in one server all over Tamriel. That'd just be amazing.
I would as a role player, I would absolutely love that. I'd love to see a big role play server with like all of Tamriel available. And everyone sticking to character and just actually having a vibrant community build up around it and be able to weave our own stories. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, I love that. That's what I wanted. But then I did play the Morrowind multiplayer, and it was kind of fun just trying to be ridiculous and trying to kill people or look like an NPC and walk, with caps lock on so they don't think that you're, a person, and then attack people. That was awesome. So there's something that brings out the MMO goofiness in you, even in Morrowind.
You're one of them.
I am.
Currently, me on the multiplayer server is basically me just jumping around naked as a red guard, punching people. It's good fun. It's great fun, honestly.
Apparently, somebody got Imperial Guard armor and used the same face and everything, and was an Imperial, and then walked through and named themselves Guard. And it doesn't. What's cool right now, as far as the Morrowind multiplayer is concerned, it doesn't like differentiate between hey, there's not some floating menu that says this is a real player or anything. So basically, he was just sneaking around like a guard, and then would attack people out of nowhere. People didn't know what was going on.
We saw something like that on the one I was playing on as well, with a guy dressed as, well, not really dressed, but looking like a dreamer, and he would go around preaching dreamer things.
Oh, that's awesome.
One of the things I think is kind of interesting is that with ESO and the Morrowind modding community, we're basically, we're building our own ESO practically in Morrowind, and it's kind of the same thing that was going on with Skyrim and Oblivion. We build our own versions. It's like, who cares about the later games? We'll just do our own thing.
That is interesting. It's that is kind of interesting. We kind of have a lens that we then interpret the Elder Scrolls through, and that's really all. Even the games are themselves. Like the lore is so believable, the world is so believable that maybe it is out there somewhere, right? And that these games are just interpretations of what the real place is like. For example, I don't think in the real Morrowind, people stand up all the time. There'd probably be a lot of angry carpenters, right, who made all those chairs. So you have but the game is an interpretation of that. And I guess in many ways, these mod versions of Skyrim, etc., is another unique interpretation of this marvelously built world. It's the best world building world ever, more than Lord of the Rings, more than Game of Thrones, anything. It is odd. It just came out in a video game.
I have to agree. I mean, I've really rarely seen world building of this quality in anything, game, movie, book, anything. I would argue Tolkien did build a hell of a world, but at the same time, if you look at anything Elder Scrolls, you can probably trace some of it to Tolkien inspiration anyway. But the level of detail they're able to go to while still leaving things vague enough to have mysteries that just enthrall us, like the Dwemer. I mean, I think they struck a perfect balance between making some canon lore information known and leaving things mysterious enough for us to all speculate and just fall all over ourselves trying to figure this stuff out and discuss it.
That's one thing I really like about Tamriel Rebuilt is how perfectly they replicate Morrowind's like game design that like no other game sort of really does. It like the amount of discussion that goes on trying to make it as accurate as possible to the game, like all those new towns and everything, actually making them fit in well. It's just insane.
Alright, so I'm kind of running out of questions to ask here, but one last question I wanted to ask you guys that's sort of a bit more on topic is, where do you think Morrowind modding should go from here? Is there a particular, sort of type of mod that you think we should see more of in the community to, help bring more people in, be it graphics mods or content mods or some combination thereof?
I would like to see some more quest mods personally, but I feel like people should just sort of do what they love, they like best. It'd be nice to see another sort of. I'd hope this doesn't annoy people, but another sort of Morrowind overhaul sort of project like that. Nice updated, nice, clean, optimized one. That'd be pretty cool. But I don't really mind.
I mean, I always love quest mods. I always love equipment mods with good custom models that fit well with the base game itself. But whenever I think Morrowind, I mean, I have to think housing. I have to think customizable housing. Because there's a ton of house mods. I mean, that there's probably more house mods than anything else for this game. But houses that have multiple options, there's not a lot of. I mean, we've got a few for the strongholds, like building up Uvirith's grave, Balisra Rising. I mean, there's stuff like that, but there's not a lot of house mods that just give you tons of options to expand, and it's usually based around the stronghold just because they're obvious points. I'd actually like to see some that are elsewhere.
Well, as far as mods are concerned, I don't know. Morrowind, we all have the experience of being able to experience Morrowind for the first time, right? Not knowing anything about it. So that's the strength that Morrowind continues to have is new players venture from Oblivion and Skyrim and hear about this game and read Steam reviews. Everybody's acting like this game is, the unbelievable experience, which it is. So I'd say that's what's going to continue to attract people. And I guess if you're thinking about modding, it's a great entrance into game development. It's a great entrance into writing and learning to tell a story. And there's an audience for it. So make a really good quest and put it up and promote it. I see a lot of people don't do that. Put it on Reddit. Be shameless about it, because you want people to play it. And that is my thing. And then I'll also just close with, if anybody's listening and all the people on this podcast ever find yourself in Las Vegas, feel free, send me an email. We'll get coffee and we will talk about Morrowind and the great world of Tamriel and game development in general.
Advertising your stuff is definitely important too. I have to agree with you there, because I've never done that, really. I've always just kind of uploaded stuff and just kind of relied on people noticing it. I barely use Reddit at all. I avoid social media like the plague that it kind of is. I scrambled my Facebook password 8 years ago and I've never looked back. I don't use Twitter. I hate it. I have started recently trying to use Reddit more and more because it's a good tool, actually. And I mean, I need to use it more than I do. I mean, I've really only used it to sell extra Steam keys at this point, but I need to use it for more than I do.
Yeah, it's scary too, because you've got the marketing version of yourself, and then you've got the, writer or whatever, the developer, and they're two different headspaces, and you have to get into one, but you have to do the marketing stuff and promote your work, because in service to your own art, if you make something that's really great, you want people to play it and to experience it, and they're not going to be able to understand that a mod came out through ESP. They're not going to be able to just know that in the ether something came out, or that they happen to be on Nexus mods when the recent mods that released. You really gotta be shameless in that. And like, I when I promoted the lamp, like I put it on R Gaming or something, and like the post got removed or whatever, and that kind of makes you like, ooh, I did something wrong. But you have to develop like a thick skin, intentionally going like, hey, I'm gonna be the manager of MauiEyes for a couple days now and promote it, or whatever you're promoting, and do the Twitter and do that, because it's all just a game. But in service to your own work, definitely critical. In service to your work and honor as an artist, and that people can experience it. You got to do that.
That's advice that I needed years ago, honestly, because like whenever I first released Soba Tour, I literally just uploaded it to Planet Elder Scrolls, and it was just found by word of mouth and people happening to notice it. That's all it was. I never put any effort into advertising it out there. I told a couple of friends about it. That was it. I'm still amazed it got as popular as it did, really.
It amazes me. I know guys out here in Vegas who are game developers, and their version of game development is spending months and months making a game and then putting it on Steam and hoping it goes well. What? Don't do that. Like, you got to, email magazines, email online publications, say, hey, I've got this thing. Would you want to talk about it? Yeah.
I was going off of your thing, like emailing magazines, like, hey, would you like a free demo of it so you can do a review? That sort of thing.
Yeah, and some people don't respond, and you feel bad, and it's like, well, they don't care about, that was rude, But in the power of numbers, it's the ones who do end up being really, really valuable for you. Yeah, that's how.
I don't even know.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't even realize there was a Reddit for Morrowind modding until like a couple of days ago. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's not very active if you're talking about the specific Morrowind modding one, but then our Morrowind's really active.
Ah, okay. I didn't know that. Thanks for that. I might need to advertise there.
Yeah. Yes, you should, absolutely. When a new mod comes out, big post, trailer, updates, image, and as long as you're not like insane about it, so not, you do something, I say, once weekly, and because they love it. They love new mods, and you get the positive comments, and people are excited about what you're making. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, on that note, it is something that a lot of Morrowind modders need to work on a bit more, because this community does actually have a lot of resources for advertising mods. We've got, again, the Morrowind Reddit, like you mentioned, TS3 mods, subreddit, the Morrowind Discord, and, of course, the Morrowind Steam forums that everyone keeps forgetting about, even though it's probably one of the more active sections of the community, which is just sort of off in its own little bubble. But, it never hurts to post a mod over there.
Yeah, I didn't even know about the Steam forums. It makes sense. Most people today playing Morrowind get it from Steam. It's a great place to market a mod towards.
I've actually never even been over on the Steam on the Steam forum for it, because well, like I said, up until recently, I haven't really had good internet anyway, so I always have Steam in offline mode, so it doesn't force me to try to update and use up all my data cap. So I'm only just getting out of that habit now.
Well, if that was the last question, I just want to say once again, Dark Elf Guy, this has been. Oh, he just posted it. There it is, the forum board. Yeah, this has been so cool. I've been grinning from ear to ear this entire time. This is a highlight, because again, it all started with Morrowind, and then it started with my mod, and now I'm doing game development professionally, and it's legit. I'm not just, it's not a hobby now. And it all started here, and it all started with you in a big way, and so I'm super honored to be here. So nice talking to you, Dagoth and Caeris, and you guys have been such a pleasure to talk about Morrowind with, and I definitely want to do this again. So if you have me back, I'll be back. This was a blast.
Yeah, this is really good fun. What he said.
Definitely. I've always loved talking with Dark Elf Guy and whoever he gets to come around, and it's been fun doing this with you guys. Definitely. I started playing Morrowind, like I said, when I was 14 years old. I played it so much, I literally had dreams about Morrowind. I was that deep into it, and and here I am now. I'm still modding. We're still all talking about it. The community's gotten more active, if anything, and I'm starting to introduce my daughter to it. My daughter loves playing Skyrim. I'm trying to get her back into Oblivion, and then I'm going to get her back into Morrowind. She's watched me play it some.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Oh yes, and thank you guys for agreeing to do this podcast. I know it's been a bit hodgepodge. And of course, our next podcast is going to be October 7th. Hopefully, we'll get a few more people in here and have some interesting discussions. I think that's about the history of Morrowind modding.